Hey everybody, welcome back to Publishing Disrupted. I am editor Mick Silva.
And I am publisher and literary agent David Morris.
And we're back exploring the ways in which book publishing is changing and how writers can best meet the challenge. And we're actually back from the Festival of Faith and Writing at Calvin College. That was very recent.
Still recovering for
Still
sure.
recovering,
Yeah.
still sort of reeling and processing.
I couldn't sleep that well at night because
Yeah,
I just there were so many conversations.
Well, you had...
And I had to process them in the middle of the night.
Yeah, like you were the publisher at the table, like showing Lake Drive books, and so there were a lot of people who came up.
Yeah.
I was there a couple of days in the mornings, but a lot of folks came and just wanted to hear, oh, what's Lake Drive and what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, was it repetitive or did you? I mean, we all kind of said we had deeper conversations than we were expecting.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, it was a lot. It was just nonstop.
Felt like a fire
different
hose.
kinds of conversations. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was really valuable just from a human point of view. Why don't you describe the Festival of Faith and Writing?
Yeah. So it's been going on for I don't know how many years, a long time.
Every other year.
Every other year, that's true. Supported by the English department at Calvin University here in Grand Rapids, and so it's I'm remembering it from way back when I first started, but it was going on even before that. In the 90s and even 80s, I think.
Yeah.
I know Gary Schmidt has a lot to do with that in his publishing, and then some of the people in the English department who are just longtime supporters.
Who's Gary Schmidt?
He's an English professor there.
Okay.
And writer,
Mm-hmm.
children's author, YA, but well recognized, friends with Catherine Patterson.
Right.
And then others who are just loosely connected
Well-known children's author.
strongly connected to Calvin.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the heritage, but it's the history and tradition of book reading, and so a lot of authors, even outside of Christian publishing, will come to speak and talk.
Yeah.
I heard
that's sometimes the draw, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I heard a couple of great talks. Ross Gay was there one night, and poet, and just kind of an amazing thinker. And then Barbara Brown Taylor was the last night.
First night was Robin, or the second night was Robin Wall Kimmerer, I think.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Lori Halse Anderson, whose book Speak is all about like getting to the roots of your story and finally speaking your truth, and is a YA book, but has a lot of legs in the larger market. Anyway, the themes, though, I think that's the thing that I really appreciate about Calvin. It's like, most of the time writers go to conferences, and I've had questions about this. How is it different than other writer conferences? It's like you'll go to a conference.
Different. It's actually very different.
Yeah, they'll have like a theme for the conference, right? This one is, they sort of do, but it's more like it's just a bunch of authors and readers. Mostly it's a reading conference.
At this conference,
it is.
Then how to write conference.
How to write. Although we did get a lot of those questions from people, right? It's less about the meeting with editors and selling your book and more about connecting over the topics of published books.
Right.
And that's a lot of fun for book nerds.
Yeah.
We were all nerding out together there on the floor.
I think that helps with its sense of community too, because everybody's there.
Yeah.
Not to learn not to do something that's like vocational or technical.
There's
or
business
professional.
happening, and you know that, but it's not the focus.
They're there to celebrate really interesting talks.
Right.
The ideas that are being communicated in books.
And there's agents and there's editors, of course, and publishers. You were one who had a table, and Brazos was there, and Nav Press, and Erdman's, and others. But for the most part, it's less about contracts and more about talking about books.
Right.
So I really appreciate that about this conference. It's kind of unique in that way.
Right.
Doesn't feel quite so businessy.
Right. Right. There is a layer of literary agents and editors who were there who didn't even have tables.
True.
Their houses didn't have tables, and the agents didn't have tables, obviously.
Right.
But it's still a place for some of that to go on,
Right.
where editors of a major house can meet with agents and talk about their authors, even if the authors aren't there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It feels a little more relaxed, I'd say, than some of the other conferences I've been to, where it does feel like, at other conferences, you're there to pitch.
Yeah.
You're there to sell. And you're there to make contacts and
Right.
bolster your network and hand out your cards and all
Right.
that stuff.
Right.
And this is that happens at this one.
Hopefully learn about the craft of writing. That's what some of the other conferences are about.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah, the craft of writing. That's
there
right.
was some of that
There's
here.
some of that here.
Uh-huh.
And I think they try to make it a little more broad, right? Broad-based for people.
Yeah.
But there's an interesting thing, and I'm just learning about this still. So, correct me where I'm mistaken, but I do feel like the heritage of whether it's CRC or RCA, Reformed Church, Dutch Reformed specifically, that there's a longer heritage and tradition there there's like a different type of Christian that isn't necessarily Christian nationalist when you're looking at like evangelicals or Southern
Right.
Baptists, and that's sort of the mainstream of Christian publishing. Evangelical Christian publishing is built off of that kind of, like the ECPA, right, is more evangelical
Christian Publishers Association.
and Baptist flavored.
It's very Baptist flavored,
Right.
Southern Baptist flavored.
And even like when you're talking about California Christian, which is what we're very familiar with, like
Yeah,
the
that's
Jesus
true.
hippies and the Jesus movement, much more Baptist flavored. Whereas Presbyterian, mainline, Episcopalian, and Reformed tend to be more of this, like, I don't know, it's staid and stodgy. It can be very off-putting to some people, and yet the tradition there, the roots of it, allow for some intellectual rigor, I suppose, because they care about theology, they care about like tradition.
A little more bookish.
Very much more bookish. To me, less, this is terrible, but I can't think of a better term, like airy-fairy is what I was always kind of coming off with.
Yeah.
Like there's not going to be that Pentecostal, charismatic, come to Jesus kind of stuff at this conference. It's going to be much more like considered and quiet, and nobody's raising their hands in the worship and stuff,
I think that's reflected in the book publishers who are there.
Reflective's a great word, actually, if you could just like think about that. It's contemplative. There's very little of that in the Christian evangelical writers conference circuit, I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot of poetry at this conference.
There's more poetry.
There's a lot of talk about poetry.
Yep.
And in the exhibitors, there was more poetry on display.
Right.
That was interesting.
And I guess that can feel off-putting.
People walking around saying, "Do you publish poetry?" There was that too.
Do you publish poetry? Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's unusual.
That is very
That's
unusual.
not a Christian writers conference I'm used to.
No, for the most part, you're out of luck, buddy. It's not happening.
Well, unless it's a certain kind of poetry, but yeah.
I suppose. Yeah, a lot of people asked about that. Do you publish poetry?
Greeting card poetry that goes on in Christian publishing, but
but I mean, you had all the books there, almost 4 years worth of books
for Lake Drive books.
Yeah, that you've published now, and people were picking them up and reading them and getting good stuff. And what you said, and I want you to kind of talk a little bit about this, but was that so many people came up to you and said, thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or just were affirming
Yeah.
about, I guess, this out-of-the-box approach or progressive Christian stuff that you're publishing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm always a little bit surprised because, I was a little bit surprised because, there's probably some, it's probably like Calvin is part of the CRC, which is the more conservative side of the Reformed church tradition.
Right.
But it's not, so I just wasn't always sure how, a conference that's taking place on their campus by professors that, right, exactly.
But there are gay affirming people there.
And we had a transgender memoir out in front and center of our table.
Right.
And we did have a couple of comments of like, oh, you guys do edgy stuff, or
sure,
you don't shy away from the hard topics.
And I'm sure some people avoided talking to you completely.
And there was just that, But then I was overwhelmed by how many people said, "Oh, thank you. This is so needed."
The ones who did show themselves.
It's mostly women who said that too, by the way.
Let's just be honest. Yeah, no, I think that's really encouraging.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Because I'm remembering a couple years ago when you didn't have the table there and we were just sort of the gadflies walking around in the Prince Conference Center going, I don't fit here.
Underground imposters.
I don't even want to be here. Yeah, it just felt really ooky to me.
Yeah, but it was like we were able to sort of create a space that maybe doesn't exist there. I'm sure it does in some other ways and in some spots.
It's starting to exist more. But I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
Do you get the sense that that's becoming more like you can be out, not just out of the closet, gay affirming, but like more expressive of deconstruction in general? And
I think so. There was a writer, author there in this space who writes about purity culture, who writes about what is, how do we move on? Who are we? Yeah. Very thoughtful person. And that writer, that author, was remarking in a recent post about how accepted that person felt at this time around. How many, maybe not so much accepted, but the number of meaningful conversations that happened.
Right.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
So in other words, like people who want to be in this conversation, or they want to be in a shifting conversation anyway, we're ready to do it.
Right.
Whereas I don't know that is possible in the past.
Less true even 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I feel that online, certainly. I mean, there's much more language being put to deconstruction, what it means, what it involves, even religious trauma and spiritual abuse, those terms being used much more readily. Yeah,
most people didn't. When I would use, like, to describe us, I was always sort of like, well, what should I say? I don't want to, but when I used the word faith deconstruction, most people were like, oh, okay, I got that.
Sure.
So I didn't have to sort of explain, well, what is that?
Right.
Right. Probably got one of those, but
I'm sure people have different ideas of what it means.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like evangelical, who knows what that means?
I will say like progressive sometimes, because that definitely communicates some things, but for better, for worse.
Sure.
I will say post-evangelical. I'll say ex-evangelical.
Yep.
But then I think also when I said faith deconstruction, that was almost the easiest term for people to understand.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, no, I think with the conference itself being called Faith and Writing Festival, it's a celebration of faith and writing together, right? And sometimes some of the writers don't have faith.
Right.
And some of the faith-based people there don't really understand all of the types of writing that are out there. So it's like those things are coming together.
One of the people from the English department, I think, came by our booth and was talking to Julia, who was there as well, Julia Rocky, a Lake Drive Books author. And she was saying how, what is like a quintessential Festival of Faith and Writing is when you bring in someone like a Robin Wall Kimmerer or Ross Gay, and then you have someone dialoguing with them from the faith world.
Nice.
And like that, to her, that's quintessential Festival of Faith and Writing. It's not like anybody's trying to convert somebody. It's more like, how do we talk about these big ideas and expressing them in a written word?
Yep.
And also connect them to the deeper sacred aspirations that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm remembering in years back, we've had people like Salman Rushdie, Marilyn Robinson a couple times. The folks who are a bit more contemplative and just aren't necessarily into the evangelistic fervor.
Very famously, Frederick Buechner, and of course, Madeleine L'Engle,
Lucy Shaw,
in the past,
Walt Wangerin, So lots of people who are sort of in that camp, right? In that more considered and contemplative camp of Christianity.
Which is a smaller camp these days in my mind.
It is smaller.
In terms of it being known. Yeah. Maybe it's bigger, but it's not known.
No,
but
right.
I wish there was. That's one of the things I wish there was more of. Is more contemplative writing that's noticing, that's slowing down. I've talked about that here.
Oh, absolutely.
Many times. And that I think is something the festival can help encourage.
The garden metaphors, I mean, that was what Ross Gay talked about.
Pastoral was the word you used in the past.
Pastoral, sure. Yeah. Just pastoral in this, not being a pastor, but fields, of green meadows
the
and
word
things like this.
Does mean something else.
That's right. But like earth and nature consciousness, and even Robin Wall Kimmerer, I mean, she's talking about kind of Native American faith in some ways, right? So getting back to the land is a very prominent theme in conference like this. And I don't think that'll change. It's a nature focus, right? God is in nature. And
I missed Barbara Brown Taylor. What'd she write? What'd she talk about?
So
Do you remember?
Man, at some point, and I don't know how much to go into this because it was very personal to me, but like listening to her, and she was one of the first to talk about leaving church. They even said this to introduce her.
Mm-hmm. That was the title of one of her books.
One of her books. And she's an Episcopalian minister, right? She was trying to be
in Georgia,
a pastor in the South. Mm-hmm. And so like she talks about that in her book, Leaving Church, how it became something of an idol to her to have this small church that she could shape and be influential in people's lives in a positive way, but it was changing her in a negative way. Mm-hmm. And so she stepped back and wrote about that. And so that was a long time ago. I don't know how old that book is now. It's probably 25 years old.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry I missed this.
Because she was one of the first to kind of talk about this, right? Even before the emergent movement.
But she's writing about, she's talking about it now, 25 years later. She's coming back to that same that same dynamic.
And characterizing what it looks like now in terms of just the context, the larger world context. And obviously American Christian nationalism, and that's kind of an export that we've created now, not just in Britain and other countries, but like politically and theologically, right? That this is something that she's trying to reckon with in her writing. And how do you do that in a world that's just so full of words and words that don't feel like they matter? And she's talking about AI and how that's a dehumanizing effect on words, right? And the value of them. Mm. So she was really talking about the origins of her love of words and trying to recapture that love. And she shared that, you remember Helen Keller's story with her teacher. I'm forgetting the teacher's name. This is terrible. Oh. People who are listening will know. If you've read the book or seen the movie, Helen Keller just trying to get language, get words, and feeling the water, right, in her hand, and the teacher telling her that this has a word by signing it in her hand. Mm-hmm. And then that moment of recognition from Helen Keller when the word actually gives meaning to the experience. Mm. And so it was really profound. And I actually, when she was describing this, I'm remembering watching the movie, like a sound like arose from my throat as I'm listening, just because I was kind of overcome with the power of language, right? Yeah. And Sherry turns and looks at me and she's like, "Are you okay?"
It wasn't just the power of language. Oh. It was the power of language to talk about language in this case.
It kind of was. Yeah. It was really meta in that way. I loved the experience of just being there with all of these mostly gray hair people in the audience.
That is part of the clientele.
Big room,
especially
right?
in the talks.
A big school gym, and she's just delivering this talk. But this is someone who has thought deeply about this subject for a long time and recognizes all too well the devaluation of not just words, but of meaning itself. It just feels like, well, what does anything mean if words don't matter anymore, right?
Right.
And as an editor, as a writer myself, I was just kind of overcome in that moment. And so it's those types of experiences, I guess, that I go back to when I'm trying to like sort through some of the other like less enjoyable conversations or experiences I had at the conference. And I know you do that too.
Like what? What was less enjoyable?
I mean, seeing some of the smarmy
not gonna let you get away.
People, some of the agents, even some of the authors who are
present agents listening.
The hard sell people.
Yeah,
you know.
Like, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like
well, there's a lot. There's definitely a layer of business trying to
make
transactions happening. Yeah,
it's my discomfort and my inability, my incapacity to even kind of understand business when it comes to publishing sometimes, because I feel like they should all be free, these books. Mm-hmm. I just have this like hippie mindset. I just want independent stuff.
Yeah, and that was there too.
That is there.
There were some
like Bob. Bob was there.
Bob
came
was
by
there.
And he dropped off his chat books.
Yeah, Bob Hudson, who we had on last episode. Perkipery Press.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, chapbooks and so on. Mm-hmm. Amazing stuff. And I was impressed by at least two publishers, who do like poetry and a little bit of fiction.
Okay.
And it clearly was not commercial.
Yeah.
And I know how much it costs. I mean, it's not a huge fee,
Sure.
but to get a table, but also possibly to fly yourself there, to get a hotel room, pay for meals. I mean, you're laying out a lot of cash. And we sold books. We actually had a lot of books on our table.
Mm-hmm.
We sold books, and I felt happy with what happened there. But I also, but the others were more like, these books are here for display purposes mostly.
Right.
And I was just amazed at their commitment to what they do.
Yeah.
That they would come to this conference, spend the money it
smaller presses.
Yeah, smaller presses like that. I was impressed by their commitment to do that, and I kind of wanted to know more about like how does this work for them, and that they're here. I mean, are they meeting more authors? Obviously, that's one question that they may be wanting to pursue. They may make more author connections.
Sure.
How's it going with their business?
They just enjoy talking to other people about books,
Right there.
Like, I just feel like, and I know you are dealing with this too, because we both grew up pretty fundamentalist Christian, but it's like this superiority mindset, I think, that I'm trying to unlearn. I still have it. Like, I still think that some thoughts aren't worth thinking about because it's not going to lead anyone to Jesus. I'm not thinking that consciously.
Yeah, it's in your...
But there's like a subconscious thing that's like, that's not worth my time.
Yeah, those are the neural pathways that
that's
you
not
have.
big enough. That doesn't get the word out big enough. Like, I think that there's something in me still that's this evangelical fervor that I'm trying to unlearn and unpack a little bit, because can I just talk about my love of books? Is that enough?
Yeah.
Do I have to always have like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't thought that through all the way yet, but...
Well, one practical way to talk about it is something that hit me at this conference, which I mentioned before we started talking here, that I was always the case, was always true about this conference, but I saw it, I noticed it more this time. And that is that none of the bigger religious publishers are there, except for maybe one that's located here in Grand Rapids.
Yeah. Interesting.
But they're all like, in terms of their annual revenue, they're all pretty small.
Right.
Some very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
And that intrigued me quite a bit, and I'm still processing it.
Yeah.
But it's something about the disconnect. Like I know, like, okay, so I was a publisher at one of these large houses.
Yes.
And I definitely loved the fact that we were here in Grand Rapids as part of that big publisher, and the festival was here, and I always wanted to keep a connection there.
Right.
But it was difficult in a way because, I knew that it's not a place for my editors to necessarily show up and do acquisitions. They're not going to meet a lot of authors there.
Right.
And it is company time that they're there.
That's right.
So you want to make it valuable to the company, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not going to do a lot of sales of books.
Right.
So this year that publisher wasn't there.
Yeah.
For one reason or another.
Our former publisher.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And neither were others like Tyndale or Cook or Waterbrook or
the Big Five.
The biggest.
Or Big Four now.
Yeah. No Thomas Nelson presence.
Yeah.
And I think that's remarkable worthy. I mean, that's
Nashville's not that far away.
Yeah,
they
and
could be here.
They've actually, Nashville's tried. I'm forgetting her name. She tried to start a conference, and has. And I don't know if she's still doing it, but there's one.
Yes,
Amy McConnell.
Amy McConnell
in Nashville. She had
That's
one
true.
doing. I don't know. I haven't checked in on that one.
I don't know who shows up at that one though.
Yeah, it was
in terms of publishers.
It was smaller. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think I think it is a commentary to not put it too bluntly on evangelical publishing.
Yeah.
In that we're not interested in like grassroots community.
Right.
Or we're not interested in literary community.
And I don't think they'll say that out loud.
And we're not so much not interested in it. That maybe isn't a fair word, but not connected to it.
Yeah, it's not
we don't
valuable.
We don't have natural connections to it.
Right.
I thought to me that is interesting, and it is a commentary on that literary culture. I'll put it that way. We've talked about literary culture here.
Exactly, and I think there's something to literary culture that just appeals, or is actually interested in a grassroots, more even obscure, kind of detailed, nuanced, subtle approach. There is no nuance and subtlety allowed, it seems, anymore in evangelical publishing. The nuances that are there are quickly diminished
Right.
because it doesn't serve the larger flagship, basically, of the publishing house. And I think sometimes we're talking in two ways here. There's political machinations and there's theological ones. And
Right.
you can
Right.
say conservative and people think you mean one or the other, but often it's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, like when you're conservative these days, it seems like
Right.
in the evangelical world,
Right.
that means both theologically and politically. Right. And when you're publishing in the evangelical sphere, Christian publishing, what we call, you're looking at a very limited
Right.
theological and political perspective.
Yeah.
And it's valued in that way, right?
Right.
That so when you're going to a conference like this that has diversity and subtlety and nuance,
Right.
and small things,
Yeah.
and quiet things and contemplative things, well, that's not valuable.
It's more broad. Yeah.
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 You see how there's kind of an introvert-extrovert division as well there too, because like introverts tend toward more, contemplative nature, and extroverts are like loud and dominating, right?
Mm.
And I think that's been for many years one of my difficulties that I have with the evangelical church. It appeals to extroversion in a great way, in a wonderful way. Rewards extroversion. Community is what
Rewards
we wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we talking about when we say community for introverts, for not perfect in the box conservative people?
Yeah.
Whether you're Christian or not, how do you have community?
Yeah.
Right? Then this is one of the places that I feel like that's a I don't know. It's a place to explore that.
I do think it's a commentary on evangelicalism as being anti-community.
Right.
Strangely enough, because evangelicalism, the church, that brings people together in church, but that's with a lot of gatekeeping, a lot of
certain kind
like
of
code and certain like you have to be a certain kind of, you have to say certain things, do certain things.
If you're willing to change, if you're willing to mask, if you're willing to
play it this way
in the box.
But just like back to the example of the other publishers not being there, why not? Like at the Lake Drive booth, one of the things we did was, I'll just talk about it. About the booth in general. We actually had an email list sign up,
right?
Which was a very successful. We filled up 3 pages.
A clipboard where you can write your email on.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
We were selling books. We were talking about books. We were informally meeting with aspiring authors.
Yeah.
We conversed with a lot of other publishing people.
For sure. Yeah.
Like we saw a lot of old friends. Yeah. And new friends. And that to me, like why, if you're like a big, multi-million dollar annual revenue publisher,
right?
Why don't you want to partake in that? Like, why don't you want to be part of that grassroots movement?
Right.
You can especially afford to be there too.
It would seem.
Send one person or send a group of 4 people.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to collect an extra, 50 names for your list that already has 50,000 names?
Right.
Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Right.
Why wouldn't you want to make a human connection between your publishing company and your brand?
Yeah.
And it does. Brands and publishing don't matter for the most part. People don't look at the spine and go, I like that publisher, I'm going to buy that book. But they do in the spiritual, religious writing, literary world.
Sure.
Those things do start to matter more. So why wouldn't you want to do that?
Just to represent your brand.
Yeah.
To be there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think they're telling on themselves by not being there and not doing that.
Yeah. Not supportive of where books actually come from. And this is something that we talked about before we started.
Plus they're missing out on that communal feeling, that community feeling.
Right.
Which was really high at this conference.
Absolutely.
I think even more than like a normal Christian writers conference like been in the past. The sense of togetherness, that feeling is pretty strong at this. Yeah. I might have, personal theological issues or differences that maybe aren't my favorites about this place. And maybe some of them are pretty
substantial,
important, substantial.
That's right.
But, but there was still this like diversity, and you could find your niche, and you could have the conference that's within the conference.
Exactly.
But even more than that, there's togetherness in general, and that a lot of people are doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just the conversations that I was hearing, and even some of the presenters were talking about the difficulty of doing this work as a writer, but just, as someone who's public facing and putting their words out there. It's difficult to do. And so what does that mean? Well, you got to unpack trauma. If you're going to write a memoir, you have to talk about trauma. So some of the memoir classes actually had trauma in the title. And there was even like a religious trauma and spiritual abuse panel discussion at this conference. So that's a first. I had not seen that before. And I attribute that largely to, it's the marketplace demanding, obviously, but it has been successful for certain authors to publish to that audience. It's being identified now. And I hesitate to say that because I don't want them to commodify it and jump in there and say, oh, look how valuable it is to publish deconstruction books, because we already know it is, and it's getting a little saturated right now. But and that's just going to happen. That's the nature of the beast. But yeah, I agree. I think some of the contexts that I was having with people were much more just conversational and even potentially cooperative.
Cooperative is, I think,
There's a collegiality there. We're all in this together. It's not about competition and seeing who's bigger than who.
Right.
I'm actually really glad Zondervan wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that. I'm just going to.
Yeah.
And Nelson too, for that matter. I feel like their presence sort of puts this pall over it.
Yeah.
At least for me. I don't know if that's felt by others, but it's like it kind of colors it. And it's like when you invite the too loud extrovert to the party. And you're like, you know what? This isn't what this is about. We just need to kind of silence some voices right now so that others can be heard.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I'm kind of I'm reactive. I'm still feeling a little bit of that triggering that happens when I see them.
Yeah. I think that's I once had a leader at a large publisher where I worked say, be careful about being too friendly with some of the other publishers, which always struck me as like, well, I didn't expect someone to say that.
Wow, really?
Because it feels like we're all in this together.
Right.
And that's how it felt at this conference when I was talking to some of the other publishing professionals. We're all in this together, and there's plenty to go around.
Right.
And even the smaller...
We publish to different types of people.
There's that, but even just the smaller publishers and the bigger publishers, you can help each other without fighting or competing with each other. Right. There's competition, sure, but there's also ways to help each other in the process. And frankly, a lot of us have worked for all these different companies too at the same time. So there really ought to be like this. Be careful be careful who you burn on the way up, because you'll see them on the way down.
No, that's very true. I've seen that happen. Right.
Yeah.
We've both seen that happen. I've been very careful about being kind to people.
Yeah.
I tend to lead that way. I don't know, and I'm not saying that in an egotistical way. I try to lead with humor and permission and kindness, generosity. Like, I just don't feel like that's necessarily how a lot of evangelical publishing leads. They don't lead that way. They lead with the handout and what are you going to do for me? And I don't understand that. I don't know where that comes from, because that's not, at least in the churches that I was raised in, that's not what I was hearing from the pulpit. If anything, I was hearing the opposite. And yet the congregation itself felt maybe a little less on that the same page with that. I don't know.
I was also intrigued by the fact that there were some universities there. And they're there because they have creative writing programs.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that every flagship evangelical Christian college in the United States has a creative writing program that would actually send people to this conference.
Right.
And I think there's something to be
out.
said about that. Yeah. I mean, in fact, I did hear one person explain how there was a creative writing program at this one evangelical college, but it was done away with recently because of recent developments.
Yeah. Well, the humanities departments in general.
Shifted over somewhere else. But I thought that was intriguing.
They're less valuable. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's very similar to what's happening in the evangelical book world.
There were 2 or 3 at least. One of them was connected to one of these writing programs. There was 2 or 3 at least, like annual reviews, annual anthologies of essays and poetry and book reviews. That was really cool to see.
Yeah.
There was right next to our booth was, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it was a Catholic anthology.
Poetry.
Yeah. And the person is out of a university, Caldwell University, out of northern New Jersey. She was a delight to be a neighbor to at this conference, Marianne.
I saw Relief Journal. They were coming back.
Yeah, that's the one connected to Taylor, I think.
Yeah.
Taylor's writing school, writing program.
They went away for a little while, but I think, are they doing a print? Do you know a print journal, or if it's just
yes,
online?
It was print.
It's both?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to hear.
Inglewood Review of Books was there.
Inglewood's there, yeah.
Christian Century was there.
Yep. So these are...
No Christianity Today, though.
No, and that's the thing, right?
That's interesting.
That's what you're saying.
That's interesting as well.
I guess.
Yeah. Why not be there?
They're the big players.
Why not cultivate grassroots connections,
maybe they're
real life connections?
Are they not invited? Like, is there some sort of I don't know. I doubt they would do that. Like, limit it to not having the larger players, but it is telling. It's interesting.
Right.
University programs, but also just publishing businesses,
right,
that are choosing to opt out of a pretty, I would think, if not, monetarily valuable, at least.
And it was a busy exhibit hall.
Yeah, right.
The traffic was amazing.
There.
Yeah, there were slow moments for sure, but there was also very busy moments.
The overflow parking was even full. I was like, good grief, this is bigger than it's ever been. And then they were busing people in too. So, yeah, anyway, in terms of, like, I guess, community, because I wanted to kind of end on that, I feel as though, like, there's always shifting happening, right? But, like, there is this, I guess, understanding growing, I would hope. Maybe I'm just characterizing this, but an understanding that there is more diversity among Christian thinking, and even, like, just faith-based. Even if you don't want to claim the title Christian or evangelical anymore, that you can still say, I'm working through this, that this is valuable to me, like, even if I'm just deconstructing, and I'm there, like, as a writer or a reader, going, why is it that general market books seem so much better and deep, and evangelical books don't? Like, I'm just that kind of person. Yeah. There's a lot of those people there too, and I'm like, is this becoming more understood now because of I guess it's a political climate, but just because of the American system that I think we're all becoming aware of, that it does reduce things to commodities, and it reduces the value of things. Just the mindset of it, I guess. Christians in general, I think, are starting to see this. And I don't want to divide just into two camps. It
also reduces the breadth of understanding. It also reduces the breadth of relationships.
That's right.
There's not breadth, but there's...
It's like it's inconsistent.
Depth, I don't even want to say it's depth. It's more like there's conformity.
Yeah.
Like we're used to mass culture here in the United States.
Absolutely.
And... breaking out of that is not easy, whether it's something that you're in because you're just there and that's
the system we're in.
Put.
Yeah.
Or whether it's something we're complicit with.
Right.
Or whether it's something we now want to find and go discover better.
Right.
I think that's the opportunity. I think that's the commentary I'm taking out of the festival. Is like, okay, I experienced something on a more relational level, on a smaller scale.
Right.
It was magical parts of that experience, actually, at least within our own little group.
Yeah.
Some fun things were going on.
That's really cool.
And we're actually thinking about next time how we can make it even better than that.
Right. Just getting the word out that it's okay to be different. It's okay not to want to pander to the mainstream. Mass culture.
Right.
I think that's a really important phrase. That
you don't need that best-selling book.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
No, it's like one of our earliest podcasts when we were saying death to the mainstream, Now it's just individual tribes kind of trying to link up together.
Right.
I really prefer that. I think there's something about preserving the dignity and nuance of a unique concept, idea, author, publishing house, approach. Like these can be distinct. And we always try to give lip service to the idea that one big flagship publisher can have a lot of different imprints, but they're all serving the same bottom line. And
That's
ultimately,
right.
The distinctions
same leadership structure
are completely demolished.
Yeah.
Because, exactly. Yeah. They'll just move people around. It's a figurehead kind of thing. And it doesn't even matter.
The same company culture.
They don't think about the distinctions between the books and the brands. They mostly just pay it lip service and put someone in the roles to fill the gaps. I mean, that's how they publish books.
There's no mechanism. There's no mechanism in place to keep the distinctions there.
That's right.
And you have to actually make a mechanism.
Yeah.
Whatever that would be.
And if you think
mechanism's not a great word, but
no, but like something. Yeah. Or somebody in that role to say, look, we need to keep a distinction between these things.
How do you create subcultures?
It's like it's not even thought about.
Right.
And think about like it's just a field. Like if there's an invasive species, you've got to you got to deal with that, man. Or pretty soon your entire field is one type of thing.
Ooh, nice.
That's the way it works, right?
Yeah.
So mass culture has that effect on things, and we're trying to keep things diverse and interesting and just fun.
We have an invasive species in the woods behind our house. It's called bittersweet, Asian bittersweet.
Sure.
And it creates these long running vines that creep up trees, and it will girdle trees, and it'll cut off the sap that's running up, and it will kill the trees.
Wow. Yeah.
It's pernicious. I mean, it is everywhere, and I've been trying to fight it. It will even like twist on itself.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of
I've seen that.
Evangelical denominations.
I've seen that in churches.
And apologetics discussions and theology
what's it called?
discussions.
Sweet what?
Bittersweet.
Bittersweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great name.
And there's an American bittersweet that's okay, but this is an invasive species. But it really does take over everything. Yeah. That's what I was thinking of when you said that. It sort of takes over everything. But the work of uprooting it it's really gritty work.
You
honestly.
Don't want to have to do it.
There was a deer tick on me.
Exactly. You're gonna get in trouble.
And it's just to get into the thicket of it.
Right.
It's like, oh my goodness, it's just choking everything here.
Yeah.
But after years of working on this vine in the woods behind our house, there's parts of it. They're like, oh, this used to be infiltrated with this stuff. It's not there anymore, and look what's growing now.
And look what can exist.
I do it with the Cascade Township has somebody who does this and takes us to the parks to work on it.
Cool.
And she would talk about how, the bittersweet, when it kills like this large oak tree that was in this one park, she says that one oak tree is responsible for like thousands of birds and bugs and ecosystem components. And we've got to save that tree by working on the, what's also called, there's this other bush that's invasive too. It's called something olive. I'm forgetting what it is. But that and the bittersweet, we work on that stuff. And,
Yeah.
Interesting analogy that we got into.
No,
there.
I know. I like it too. And I think I can say like we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a choice.
Yeah.
Like you didn't necessarily want to spend your day doing that.
Right.
But you have to do it if you want to save that oak.
Yeah.
And so it's like I think there's a lot of people, I'm talking to Sherry about this, my wife, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do when I grow up? I still feel this.
Yeah.
What the heck am I doing? And I worked in books and now I don't. I do. I'm still an editor, but like what I'm ultimately doing, I think, is trying to accept the fact that I have to deal with the bittersweet.
Excavate.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't want to do that.
And then what can grow next?
Yes. Yeah. And I guess if I can accept that and help others see that that's necessary, that we just do have to deal with this reality that we didn't choose, then maybe I can be a force for good and positive change and allow some things to grow, hopefully for our kids,
Come over sometime. I'll show you the vines.
I'd love to see it.
It's really remarkable.
Yeah. If I figure it out, I'll let you know. I don't expect I will, but it's a great metaphor because I continually return to this idea that I'm shifting as I get older into accepting the things that I didn't choose, that I'd prefer not to have to deal with.
Yeah.
And yet I do have to deal with it, and it's okay. You actually are doing what you're meant to do, and maybe that's the larger work. Actually, like what I wanted doesn't really matter. What is necessary is what matters. Yeah. So, thanks for being here. We didn't mention the word disruptive, I think, this whole episode.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, obviously we have alluded to that concept, but that's what we're talking about here every time. So
we're interpreting it, definitely.
Yeah, I want to continue thinking about that. But all right.
Thank you.
Talk to you next time.